Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Florence Ann Romano. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here this wonderful day.
I am thrilled to be here with you.
Oh, girl, I'm excited to have you because we talked just briefly before we hit the go button, how important it is to find and build your tribe, your community. There's many different terminologies for it. But, you know, we were talking about how disconnected folks feel. And I told you just recently, I was, when I go to the sauna after gym, there are people like all head down into their phones. But not only that, I also walk by in the morning as I go to my car, kids who are waiting for the bus, and they're all each individually separated from each other, down in their cell phones, and so disconnected. And you've written a wonderful book called Build Your Village, a guide to finding joy and community in every stage of life. So this isn't just important for children out there or teenagers, but all stages of life. What brought you to write your book?
Well, during COVID, I looked around and thought, gosh, on a global level, we all know what it's like to lose our people, to lose our support system.
Yeah.
And after going through that, and gosh, that was something to go through for sure. The history books and ourselves, I guess, will tell those stories for years to come. But after that, we had to get back out there. We had to connect again. We had to go back to some sort of normalcy. And as I started to notice people doing that, I noticed two things. People didn't know how to do it, and people didn't kind of want to do it. And I thought that was the most important piece of it. And so I started thinking about that proverb that we hear so often: it takes a village to raise a child. And that's lovely, and that's true. But I also feel that it's a little too nebulous, and it's also excluding a whole lot of people who don't have children. Those people deserve to find their community too. So that's what prompted me to write Build Your Village.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just COVID. I think there was a certain level of disconnectedness. I think social media and iPhones and all that jazz has been wonderful, amazing tools that have really broadened. I mean, look at people can start businesses like in a flash with almost no money down or zero money down and start a business with their cell phone. I mean, so it's amazing the power we have. But I think part of this technology has led to us becoming disconnected as human. Why do you think we've become so comfortable with disconnecting and kind of retreating into technology instead of connecting more with each other?
The work of connecting with people, it's going to require honesty. It's going to require vulnerability. And that's not always comfortable. And I think that when you have to put yourself out there, there's also a level of rejection that you're worried about. And I think we often find this, of course, adults feel this way. We feel rejected in different scenarios, but teenagers, very specifically, it's a time in your life where you just want to fit in. You don't want to stand out for the wrong reasons. And rejection when you're younger, that oftentimes is quite more turbulent to navigate than perhaps when you're older. You don't have as thick a skin, perhaps, as when you get older. And I have found that that's probably a big reason why retreating to social media is just easier, because it doesn't require a whole lot of, perhaps for lack of a better word, bravery from you.
Yeah, I could see that. But, as you said, this isn't just hit the teenage population or even kids, because I see 2-year-olds with iPhones or phones these days. But I mean, adults. I started last year a networking business event near Houston. And everyone's like, busy. And then the minute I said, let's go online, they're like, oh, okay, I could do that. And so I was like, it's like, no, drive, get there, sit there. I could just sit in front of Zoom. I'm like, but you do that all day long, people. Let's connect. Let's be in front of each other. And I think it's a little bit, I think bravery plays a part and being rejected, but I think it's too comfortable. actually.
Well, I agree. Like I
Yeah.
said, after COVID, especially, everyone was like, gosh, you know what? Yoga pants and Netflix, a lot more interesting than actually going out and meeting someone for dinner. And so, yeah, I think let's say what we're not saying, right? It's lazy. We are getting a little lazier about connecting. We could manufacture a whole lot of reasons that maybe are deeper, and those are true. But I also think that there is an effort that is lacking as well.
So now I know it's probably going to be a little painful for people listening in who begin to think, okay, I'm going to take some of your advice from your book and what we share today. But I think there's going to be a little level of having to get past comfort to do some of these things that will inevitably lead to a much richer life.
Right. And taking that step, and I always laugh because, hey, I could write this book and give you the directions and give you that roadmap. People always say, well, what's the phone number to call the village? And, where are the directions? Okay, so here's the book. Here are the directions to the village. But I can't make you go there. You have to get in the car and drive. So just like anything in life, it's going to take you deciding that you want it to change. Until you want it to change, it's not going to change. People are not just going to show up at your front door and be like, hey, I'm here to support you and love you. That's not what happens, So
exactly.
You have to decide it's important for you and you're ready to put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And now let's say someone listening in, they've become so disassociated. It could be a teenager, it could be an adult, and they are like, I don't even know who my tribe is anymore. How do they begin to get in touch with, where do I find that community? And who is it?
Well, I developed 6 different archetypes in the book, 6 different villagers, if you will, that you identify with. You think, okay, who am I of these 6 villagers? And then also, who am I looking for in my village of these 6? Again, it's this circle. It's not just me, me, me. It's a reciprocal, give and take relationship. But I always think that the common denominator for the first step to becoming any of those 6 or finding your community is in philanthropy. It's a great way to meet people that are like-minded, that share a passion, but also probably are coming from diverse backgrounds. And you get to pay it forward. You get to do something good in the world. I do believe that our life is supposed to be lived in service of others. And you're also, at the same time, going to be able to open up your database. Your demographic is going to change. And hopefully you will start to find different people that you connect with. And also looking at your life as it currently exists. Maybe you have people in your life that fit into these villagers, but you're still feeling like something's not right. I'm still not fulfilled by it, or what's going on? Why does something feel funky? Well, maybe it's because you have put people in the wrong seats. Then you need to shift it up. You need to, shuffle the deck. Maybe your accepting villager is really not your accepting villager. Maybe they're the organizer and you're not setting them up for success in your life. So they're failing you. And maybe you feel the same way too, because other people are putting some sort of expectation on you that you can't fulfill. So it's a lot, again, of this kind of introspective self-awareness that we're asking to happen. But at the same time, it's not such a heavy lift to be able to look at what are my strengths and then also seeing people for who they are. There is simplicity in this work as well.
Yeah, I love that, because really it starts with you and getting a handle on who are you all about and being introspective. I remember an exercise, and I don't remember what book it was, where I think it was about, getting your finances in order, because people often think, I want to go do something fun, but that requires getting my nails done, money, coffee, money, clothes, shopping, money. And they said, write down 10 things that you love to do or like to do that don't cost anything. Because we forget there are wonderful pleasures in life that you forget that don't really cost anything. Enjoying the sunrise, or going for a walk, or whatever it might be, petting a cat, or so whatever. So I wrote a number of those down, but those also get you in touch on what your village might be by now getting in touch with what are the things that just give me pleasure and happiness, and finding other people who also find those same likes.
Well, know thyself. I think that's what you're getting at, Christina, is you have to know who you are, and then figure out what's missing or what you want to work on. We shouldn't be friends with people that just look like us, sound like us, think like us. We want to be challenged. We want to always constantly be a student of life, and I always think it's like you meet people and you have this mosaic inside of you, and you take little pieces of those people and it becomes that mosaic. And you kind of reach into that mosaic as needed and say, I'm going to take a little bit of that person, a little bit of that person. And that's how I'm going to know how to deal with this situation, or, be effective or be inspired or whatever it is. So I think also remembering that we need to be open-minded and open-hearted about this work too.
Well, I love that you mentioned that, because often you see it more polarized in social media, where you pick a camp and you got to be very narrowly inside of that camp. Where when I really sit down with people, no one fits really clearly in a box. It's like your ideas on certain things go varying places. It might be a little here, a little there. No one just boom, a little box.
Right.
So, what's good about it is that when you put yourself in a box, that now all other ideas are shut down.
Right.
And then let's say if you're only talking to people that are stuffed in the idea of this tight box, when you have an issue, you can't begin to see solutions because you're all thinking in this very narrow, tight box.
It's exactly it. And you have to also remember too, that you're friends with people for different reasons. So let's use politics as an example. That's the most polarizing thing, right? That we whatever, and I'm friends with people from all across the spectrum in terms of political values or whatever it might be. And it's funny because there's certain friends that we never discuss politics because we know it's not something that we're going to see eye to eye on, but we're friends because there are other reasons we're friends. There's other, and I think that's also important too, is to understand that not everybody in your life is going to fill you up or satiate you or challenge you or fulfill you in the ways that you want to be. You have different friends for different reasons, and even during different times of your life. Yeah. And sometimes it's for, like they say, a reason, a season, a lifetime. That's really kind of any relationship in your life. And instead of looking at any of the relationships you have, romantic or otherwise, as a mistake, you have to look at things as, what did you learn? Because then it was all worth it. In the end, if you didn't learn anything, then what was the point?
Yeah. And what's interesting, Florence, is that also you're at different stages of your life. Like I had some very wonderful friends that when I was at a certain stage in my life, they were absolute perfect and I was perfect in their life. And then, I noticed when I started doing business, some of them were like, this is weird. We don't get this. This is bizarre. And they weren't fitting in my life. So I started to connect with others who were creating their own business because they got what I was doing. And so the other friends from maybe high school, there was nothing wrong with them. It's just that we didn't jive anymore. They're doing their own thing. And so you find a new community, and nothing was wrong with what happened in the past, but we've both grown in different directions.
Right. It served a purpose. Yeah. And, sometimes you just need to say, thank you and honor it and then move on. And that's it. And as you start to figure out who you are too, I always say you're becoming who you're becoming is one of my favorite quotes. You're going to start intentionally putting effort toward different places in your life that you want to expand upon or that you want to learn more about. And you're going to hopefully surround yourself with people that are going to be complementing that stage of life for you. And you don't know how long that stage is going to last.
That's true. Yeah, as you go through different stages. Right now, my stage is really, it's funny. I never thought it would be, but I'm really, really channeled into fitness. And so now it's funny. Everyone in the area knows me. Oh, you're the gym gal. No one would ever have said that, back when I was living in New York. I would have never, but but now because I go so often, everyone sees me there, and so it's become like
a new moniker. Yeah, exactly. But again, shouldn't we be allowed to reinvent ourselves, whenever, or just pursue different passions and that be your identity for however long that it's going to serve you or whatever it is. That's the wonderful thing about the evolution of a human being, right? Is that you have the opportunity to explore different things and concentrate on different things.
Yeah. And what I like, and going back to what you said a little bit ago about people of different varying views, I remember my mom had a best friend who completely thought differently 180 degree differently politically. This was during Reagan era, but interestingly, they were best friends and they could argue or have disagreements, but they were always best friends about it. And I'd love for us as, in a society to get back to that where we could where we could totally maybe disagree 180 degrees in that subject line, but we could totally hear each other out and be open to it and be like, yeah, I don't agree with you, but
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? I talk about in the book, a common denominator throughout a theme, I would say, is being consciously compassionate. And I think that what you're referring to requires that. You may not agree, but we certainly as human beings should be able to be consciously compassionate, even if we don't agree on something. And the way we deliver how we feel about something, the way we treat people, these are old school fundamental things that we all learned in the sandbox growing up. And we seem to have gotten—
Don't hit Timmy now, be nice.
Right, exactly. We seem to have forgotten our manners or forgotten how to treat people. I'm not exactly sure how to categorize it. I just know that we're going down the wrong path, how we're treating one another. Well, it would be nice.
What I'm getting at here is I really think that, the social media, like we were started with, has been such a blessing. But I think social media and the internet allows for that anonymity where people can forget manners. Right. No one sees me. I can be horrid because no one sees. Yeah. Exactly. Or keyboard warrior, whatever they call it. But the real factor is like I've sat down with people and had a coffee and we've talked maybe about politics or whatever. And then we realized that none of us thinks completely like we were talking in the box, like what you see on some of the social media that you're in this box or that box. And honestly, none of us really fit into any of those boxes. We're humans are so much more complex and dynamic that when we sit down, we're like, we're not that different. Our views might be, think certain differently about something, but it's really not as different as we think.
Right. And finding common ground, I think, is important too. And conflict itself is not a bad thing. And conflict leads to better ideas and all sorts of things, but conflict in terms of emotion, I would say, I think that's where we get into trouble sometimes, is where we let our emotions get the best of us. We say things we shouldn't or things we don't mean, or, a feeling is never wrong, as they say, but your reaction is what can be wrong. The behavior is what can be wrong, not the feeling.
Well, I'd love to get your feedback on that. Why it seems like we've gotten more emotionally, like more emotional, but not in a good way. Like emotions run rampant. Yeah. But emotions, like you said, are not a bad thing, but how we're just putting them out there. How has it gotten like that? And how do we learn to temper our feelings or emotions, not deny them, but temper?
I think learning an emotional language from a young age is where it starts. I think in proper, effective communication. And that seems to be difficult for adults to do, let alone teach children how to do it. And so I feel like, look at social media as an example, or just TV in general. I was a nanny for 15 years back in the day. So I watched a lot of dynamics of families. And some of the parents would say to me, gosh, I overheard my kid the other day, getting mad about something or emotional about something. And I said, well, were they watching you react to something recently? And they were like, well, yeah, I mean, I had the TV on the other day and I was mad about something and I was kind of talking out loud. And I said, well, they're listening and they're watching. And so now when it's time for them to feel something or have a reaction about something, they're going to think about how mom or dad or whomever the adult is in their life, how they reacted to something they didn't like or they didn't agree with. And so I'm not saying that it's just the role models or just the people around us that are influencing it, but I also think that we do need to pay attention to how we are digesting content, how we are also how we are helping our children understand on social media what's real, what's not, what's appropriate, what's not, how do we treat people, what is empathy, these are all important conversations, I think, from a young age. And it's very important that we as adults are modeling it, but we're also surrounding ourselves with people that are modeling it well as well.
Wow. Wow. We could have several more conversations about this, I think.
We could, yes.
It's so deep. I mean, because also I was thinking, during the whole pandemic thing, what happened when we disconnected further with that? Did that also inhibit feeling each other's emotions and empathy and stuff like that? And how do we as parents work through that? And there's so much. It's very, 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 very deep. But this is a good start for people to get started and to pay attention, because kids don't learn by, oh, do this, Timmy or Ann or whatever. It's more about your actions will speak louder to your children on what behaviors they should take, because I think they're not going to listen as much as just by watching. They're not going to think, oh, mom did this, I'll do this. They'll just see it. And next time something happens, it'll automatically just come up and copy what they saw around them.
Right. And that imitation is important. Imitation is not a bad thing. Kids, that's how kids learn. They're imitating how your mouth looks and your eyes look, and they're paying attention to all of that. And it's so very exciting. But, as you get older, I always challenge people with this. We don't want to be on our phones all the time, or we're not, like you said in the beginning, we're not connecting with people, even when we're on, a street corner or whatever it may be. We've got our heads down. We want our children, or we want the younger generation to behave a certain way. Yet we as adults, or the older generation, are not actually behaving the way that we're asking them to. We're not even taking our own advice. So how can we tell you, get off your phone, connect with people, talk to people, and we're not doing it? It's hard on all levels, but there has to be, again, back to this everything in moderation mentality. And I think we are a world today that lives in extremes. The pendulum swings very far, and there is no gray area anymore. And I also think, going back to what happens on social media, we become very comfortable with just spewing out the hate or our opinions. And we think, social media makes us think that our opinions are, the gospel truth. And that everyone should pay attention to what we're saying, and everyone should pay attention to us. And there's an entitlement. So it's very layered. There's never one reason why something is the problem, but we have to start looking at it.
It's become UTV, but you're not a universe upon yourself. We're all interconnected. Right. You remember on social media how it used to be, everyone, I remember me looking on Facebook going, oh, her life's so much better. Her husband looks happy and they're going on fancy vacation, or your business looks awesome. And it used to paint, or people used to put up posts that looked like glorious. And so everyone thought someone else's grass was greener. And
they still do.
Oh, people still do that? Okay, I thought it was no.
And I always say that to people too. Sometimes you wonder why you wake up in the morning and feel so depleted or so inferior. Well, you're probably comparing yourself subconsciously to whatever content you're digesting. And sometimes it means putting away your phone and not doing what they call the doom scrolling. Yeah, this is also very common with moms. They look at all these other moms on social media that are, making every holiday perfect and making these homemade foods and making their kids their costumes, and they're ornate and beautiful and wonderful. And you're like, I barely got to carve a pumpkin with my kids this year for Halloween, let alone, create a whole scene outside, and you feel, again, inferior. You feel like you're failing in some sort of way. So no, social media certainly, it plays an enormous part regarding how we feel about ourselves, or our self-esteem, or our self-worth. And think about how kids feel when they're on social media now. People always say you want to wait till the very last minute before you let kids on social media, because it's a tough world. And gosh, if I had social media when I was younger, I can't even imagine. For me, it was the worst thing in the world was just, seeing a magazine cover of, someone I liked, and she looked perfect or had the clothes I wanted or whatever it was. Now there's so many reasons that children compare themselves or adults compare themselves. And then we wonder why we have a mental health crisis in this country.
Tell me. Yes. And not more medication, people. No. No, no.
That's not the answer,
No,
right?
it's not, because
sometimes medication is the answer, but that's not the only answer.
Not the first answer. Yeah. I think what people like, oh, okay, this bothered me. Pill, please. But last resort, like, let's look at all other options. And I think what I'm getting as far as the best message here is, first, for adults to look at themselves, know yourself, where are your weaknesses, kind of halt or realize, how do you portray yourself to the outside world and to your kids, and work on that. Because we can't tell them to do what to do if we can't even keep our phone. My one friend does a whole month in August of no social media, no internet.
That's wonderful. Oh my God.
That's really seems really hard to me. But he does it, and he comes back super refreshed. So he owns a business, so he's able to take a full month off and not look at his internet. His people are handling everything. But something to think about. But this has been so awesome, Florence. I know we can go on for a lot longer because there's such a deep subject. But where does everyone find out more about you and your book, Build Your Village? How do they find out more?
You go to my website, florenceannromano.com. The book is available everywhere books are sold, and also feel free to follow me on social media. As we talk all about it, but I do answer every DM, and I am here for you to be your virtual village.
Aw, well, thank you so much, Florence. It's been awesome chatting with you today and getting to know you. And thank you for sharing your insights with our savvy audience.
You too, Christina. Thank you for having me.
You betcha.